Welcome back to this month's Roundtable, your all-in-one comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters and foremost experts in technology, marketing, brokerage, government policy, capital, construction, cybersecurity. As always, this is a three-part show. Part one, introductions, what's new for each Roundtable host in their business sector. Part two, sector focus. We unpack the month's biggest news, paradigm shifts. Part three, what does this mean for your real estate businesses? What can you do in the next 30 days to grow your business and outpace your competition? I'm Andreas, Senie, founder, CRE Collaborative, brokerage owner, commercial director at KW, and a technology growth strategist for both the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. Joining me this month is none other than Saul Klein, Realtor Emeritus, data advocate, Futurist, original internet evangelist, executive editor, Realtor Times, and current CEO of the San Diego MLS. Think I got that all right? I'm going to have to give you a longer intro if you continue to accomplish as much as you have in the next period.
I think you need
Saul,
to
nice
take
to see you.
out of there.
It's the AI. It tells me what to say now. But it's nice to see you. Welcome back. You were certainly missed. Also joining us this month, Maria Kowalik, SVP Director Business Development, Inland Green Capital, LLC. Anna Maria, nice to see you out of Michigan this
Good
time.
evening. It's always wonderful to see you all.
And Dan Wagner will not be joining us tonight.
That's right.
However, Professor Darren Hayes, top 10 cyber forensic specialist globally, CEO code detective, professor Pace University, my cybersecurity specialist and advisor to God knows who else in the government and where else. Darren, nice to see you back with us, especially here in December, post-election. I had questions. And the rest of the hosts may come in and join us as we go. But Darren, nice to see you. Welcome back. Are you stateside? Are you in a bunker with the president? Or where are you?
No, I'm here in New York, but it's great to be back, and it's great to see all of you this evening.
Oh, fantastic. I cannot say how excited I am. It's December, it's Christmas, it's Hanukkah. It's my favorite time of the year, mostly because it's the fourth quarter and we do more business in the fourth quarter than any other quarter. And of course, because I get to see our audience and I get to spend time with you guys. This is in fact our 88th episode. First episode was October 3rd, 2019. We are pushing 4,000 downloads and tune-ins monthly with an audience globally. And I just looked at the numbers. 68% of our audience in North America. Special thank you to all of you. 30% in Europe, 9% in Asia, 2% in Africa, 2% in South America. Wow, incredible. So thank you to my audience. Thank you to my co-hosts. Thank you to the industry. Thank you to technology for making this such an incredible event, such an incredible thing. Saul, as always, you seem to be on the Brady Bunch cycle to my right. What's going on your side of the industry? The MLS has had a lot of turbulence, a lot of changes, a lot of renovation, a lot of construction words there. What's happening over on your side of the country?
So, well, always lots going on in the residential real estate space, right? And so the big thing that we've been dealing with for a long time, but we got a little bit more direction or misdirection on November 26th was, and you might be familiar with the fact that there's been this major litigation around MLS rules, around offers of compensation. It was civil litigation, civil class action, antitrust litigation that ended up, it was on the sell side, that ended up in a settlement with $4 billion in damages. So the settlement was about $418 million by NAR, and the other major defendants ponied up, and it was about $1 billion. And so in August, we had to change the structure of the MLS, and we took away one of the major values that people see with an MLS, and that was this thing called the offer of compensation. And so most multiple listing services, and realtors all know what multiple listing services are, and consumers, this is where when you go talk to a realtor, this is where they get the information about what's for sale. And you ever wonder where Zillow gets its data? It gets it from the multiple listing services, or where Trulia gets its data, or where Realtor.com gets its data. They all get their data of active real estate inventory and sold inventory from the multiple listing services. And the way that the multiple listing services have worked since the
96,
probably
which is a promise
1996.
of compensation.
Yeah, is that it was an offer of compensation. Well, that changed. They had this settlement. The settlement changed the practice of the MLS. Two major changes. MLS could no longer be an offer of compensation, and people working with buyers had to get written contracts delineating how much they're going to get paid before they can take somebody out and show them a property. And then
So like commercial.
kind of like commercial. Yeah.
Just saying we solved it first, but go on. And
I'm not. So it's going to be kind of interesting to you then. So we got the settlement. We got time to implement it, to change our bylaws, change our rules, change the offer of compensation, educate everybody. And about August 26th was the day that the MLSs had to be ready to go. But the settlement wasn't going to be final until November 26th. So even though there was a settlement where the defendants and the plaintiffs had agreed, the court had till November 26th, and everybody was waiting for the Department of Justice to weigh in, because there were similar cases on the East Coast. And I know, Andreas, you're familiar with MLS PIN, and the DOJ weighed in that case, and they filed a 33-page statement of interest in the MLS PIN case. And so what they said is, in the MLS PIN case, there was a settlement, but we, the DOJ, don't like it. And so everybody thought, well, now the DOJ is going to get involved in this big case, this big NAR settlement. And they never got involved until 2 days before November 26th. On November 24th, on a Sunday, the Department of Justice came out. We got a 5-page summary on where they stand. You can't see that, right? So, so here's what's important for people to recognize, and it's very interesting, and that is that the Department of Justice came into this settlement and they said, first of all, we need you to understand this. We're still investigating the residential real estate industry. Then we need you to know that we're the United States, and the United States, we have to look after consumers. So our mission is maybe bigger and broader than the court's jurisdiction and what the court has to solve. And then they said, no, that we, the United States, the Department of Justice, we were not a party to the litigation, nor were we a party to the settlement.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to tell you whether we like it or not, but we'll tell you that one thing it does is it removes the offer of compensation from the MLS, but it doesn't remove it anywhere else. We don't like that. And then it said, you've got this requirement that buyers have to sign a contract with an agent, kind of like commercial, Andreas, you can't take them to see in commercial. If you wanted to show somebody without an offer, you could, right? You don't have to. That's just the practice.
Right. You're talking agency law. Don't worry, Darren and Anna Maria, I have some concerns to you coming. But you're talking about agency, open, exclusive, or not.
No, we're just talking about signing a contract that says if I show you something,
I'm going to get paid.
I'm going to
pay me.
Right? So no matter whether it's open, exclusive, or otherwise. And what the DOJ said was, we think that maybe that requirement is a violation of the antitrust laws. And so know that we're not a party to this. We're not a party to litigation. We're not a party to the settlement. And so you do what you have to do, but know this, being compliant with the settlement does not mean we might not knock on your door someday and say you're violating the antitrust laws.
Which is the definition of a paradigm shift. We may do everything we're told, and then turns out the rug's out from the industry.
That's what we're facing in the real estate industry. So where we thought we'd get some kind of closure, we actually have, in my mind, questions. And that is, how is the DOJ going to end up treating this if they think that requiring a contract with a buyer, if they believe that could be a violation of the antitrust laws? Please tell me how it is so I can make sure I don't break the law. But so far, they haven't been forthcoming.
Right. Well, ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law, right? But there's no answer here. There's no standard operating procedure for us to move forward, residentially, MLS, or otherwise. Commercially, most often or more often than not, we coordinate. It's a material part of every transaction, regardless of principals or brokers. But we don't really publish it anywhere. But that's because commercial real estate isn't really published anywhere, at least not in bulk, not
CoStar.
in published anywhere. CoStar is a research tool. You have to pay to play. There's a
It's still
difference.
published. It's just published behind a subscription and a paywall.
All right, but is the buyer compensation published within it? Is that irregularity? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. So, but and I've got the right four to talk about, or the right three at the moment to talk about this, because regulation, and I'm going to channel my inner Saul. Takes 10 years for anything to happen in real estate here. I'm assuming it takes longer for things to happen in regulation. And Darren, on the cybersecurity side, I mean, we're talking about a massive settlement, DOJ not weighing in, the courts weighing in, everyone getting fined, everyone having to disclose, nobody knowing which way is up. And similarly, in the cybersecurity world, we've got the same concept: disclosure, data, problems, settlements. True or false, or am I just off on a kite because it's December? I've had too much eggnog. Where do you weigh in on regulation changes and data? I mean, this data is out there, it exists. How can it be antitrust when I can go to a gas station? Let me give you a parallel. Gas stations drive by each other to price themselves and to be ahead of their competitor. Is that antitrust? That's the argument I've had from some people. It's an unfair argument to you on the cybersecurity side. But where do you see? What do you see looking in the cybersecurity world?
I think that over the last few decades we've progressed because technology used to be very proprietary. So if you had a server, it only talked to certain types of equipment or applications, and you could only bring in, say, your IBM representative to fix a problem. And now we have a lot more interoperability. It's going to be interesting to see we're still kind of at the cutting edge of AI and what's happening there, and we're still working on regulations that impact that. One of the big concerns for the US government and other governments is, if you have the best AI, is that going to give you the best? Are you going to be able to defeat other smaller competition, like smaller consumers? So the SEC and others are grappling with this. AI, does that give you a jump in terms of trading on the stock market? So once a news announcement comes in, they want to make it fair and equitable to the individual retail investor and make it a even playing field versus the institutional investor. So AI we're still evolving in terms of regulation and what happens there. In terms of other regulations that are kind of interesting is ransomware, because we know that a lot of states, for example, are trying to develop their own legislation that says, if you get hit with ransomware, you can't use taxpayer dollars to pay the ransom, get your data back. Well, that's well and good. It's kind of the same principle in terms of we don't deal with terrorists. But the fact is, if the lights go out and you're an energy company, what do? Maybe you have to pay that ransom. So yeah, lots of legal questions in the world of cybersecurity and technology.
Well, and in real estate, and here we have the queen of green, right? Inland is responsible for making Cpace a thing, and what I'm pointing at as an overriding theme, and I'm getting to it early, is regulation, is master plans, is what are our government bodies doing to protect, shield, or move, or adjust, or create these paradigm shifts. And you spoke about interoperability. Saul, you just said that the MLS has stricken compensation for buy-side compensation from the data, right? Copilot, and I just ran it in Copilot today. I use Copilot. I'm a Microsoft enterprise user, and I dropped it in the chat. I mean, here it is: 5 to 6% commissions, buy-side, sell-side, from Copilot. not the MLS, not anything to do with the MLS, just a basic question to an AI tool. Where does that end? I mean, who do you find now?
Well, so I read that. That's great. It doesn't say who pays it. It just tells the amount and
I can ask.
what the average. Yeah, you have to know how to query it, right? What the average commission is, and that's great that it says that. It might equip a consumer with information they could go out and ask their real estate professional.
As they should, because at the end of the day, A1 is a day one intern, right? And if you have to check 100% of the work, you cannot 100% deploy it. And I just came from the CRETech event. We talked about this with all the major institutions. They're all deploying it. They're just not necessarily gleaning actionable insight from it they trust without somebody going in and doing the work. There's the answer to that question, Saul. So the buyer's broker receives half. Usually half of 6 is 3, so on and so forth. These are all things I legally can't say as a broker. As a show host, I can say.
Yeah, but where does it come from? Who pays it? Traditionally, the seller would pay it, and then it would go into the MLS. So anybody that brought in a buyer was entitled to some amount based on the MLS. And so what this litigation has said is that an inexperienced agent gets the same amount as an experienced agent because of the structure of the MLS. The buyer has no opportunity to negotiate that in any way because the listing agent negotiates that. So the structure reduces competition and takes away the consumer's ability to remove from a transaction any amount of commission. And that's the rub, right? That's what they're trying to eliminate. They're saying, so you got to get that out of the MLS. Now, the DOJ says we don't want that anywhere, because if it's anywhere, then agents can, and I'm not saying they do this, I'm saying this is the argument, agents can then steer prospective buyers to those properties where they get paid the most. And that's a different kind of steering, and that's not necessarily in the client's best interest. And they've got evidence that this happens to some degree. And the only way to eliminate this kind of steering is to not allow, prior to the showing of the property, the buyer broker to know what compensation is being paid. Because if there's any avenue that allows them, the MLS said, we'll take it out of the MLS. Says, that's great. That's not good enough. We don't want it anywhere. So in this settlement, it's interesting. There are already appeals, people saying, we don't want the settlement to go forward. Now, the people that are the most happy about the settlement going forward are the attorneys, because they were not able to be paid until the settlement was final. And it was $1 billion pot, and they get about $400 million out of this. So this was a happy day for the attorneys, but not necessarily for everybody else. And some people who believe they were part of the class, but they didn't think that the compensation going to the class members was enough. So, right. And then you got the buy side, which we haven't even talked about yet. So yes, you could go to AI and ask it questions, but you're right, Andreas, you got to know how to ask the question. You got to know what to ask, and you got to know what to do with the answer. Otherwise, the AI might not be as helpful to you as you think, because it doesn't necessarily give you the right.
That's the hallucination factor. Without a human on top, it can hallucinate. Not saying it does all the time, but it can. You can't guide it.
I think beyond the illusionary part, the hallucination is just that you didn't ask it the question in the right way. It's not imagining anything. It's giving you accurate information. It's just not in the right context for you to understand it.
Or based on the right sources, right? So what is the breadth and depth of what you're analyzing?
You know, we just brought in an AI component for the MLS. And what we're beginning to do is feed everything we've got, the contracts that we have with people, the operating manuals, the rules of the MLS, the bylaws, and we'll have to work on it and train it. But eventually we'll get to a point where it will help us with the labor, because we'll be able to answer questions more consistently and add to our knowledge base by taking every document that pertains to what we do at our MLS and feed it into this and then train it. And so it's kind of exciting for us. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're all going to have to learn how to ask questions, right?
Yeah. Well, so channeling my inner Darren here, then there'll be those that red team it right and try to make it do bad things and answer things inappropriately. And you have to go through this whole process of teaching it like an employee, which is wonderful. But, as we go through that process, who's checking the teachers and who's checking the algorithms and watching out for bias, and who's checking the sources?
I think we're going to figure that out. I think we're going to write procedures around it. I'm really excited about adding this tool that's going to make me more efficient. It's going to make my employees more efficient. It's a great benefit. I love it.
I'm not in disagreement. A broker with an AI broker will not replace any of us. Cybersecurity, Futurist, financing, or otherwise. Someone using AI will move faster and be able to do things at a higher level than someone without. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I look to the Cpace industry, I look at the green industry, and I'm watching this demand for solar farms and solar energy and batteries. And I'm watching these systems pop up that can take Google Earth, measure the area, the roof area, and all of a sudden determine exactly what the output is. We've got clients now that are leasing rooftops to companies that need carbon credits. The world is changing, and we're in agreement. And Maria, is AI infiltrating your side? I'm sure it is. Inland's won a few awards here.
Well, for IT services, but they're primarily services and internal kinds of programs and systems and how they're deployed, et cetera. Very high on security, which Darren is happy to note, I'm sure. And but as far as AI, now we're going through presently a reorganization of our IT systems and going to try to implement some upgrades and updates, and so it's yet to be seen how much it's going to affect us personally. However, we do see it in the industry a bit. It's been fairly factual and can assist with, writing certain informative pieces, let's put it that way, because Cpace is the same kind of all over. There are nuances as to how it's deployed state by state based on legislation, but generally speaking, AI can compose something that then, you would have to review before you actually publish it. And so I've seen people use it that way. I personally haven't gotten into it too much because, again, I don't trust it yet and don't have the time to put into messing around with it and trying things. And I think you have to do a lot of that before you can get comfortable with it.
Obviously, I love technology. I use technology. I build technology. Many of us on this call use technology at the bleeding edge, some future in the future, some at the present, places, others. I mean, everyone, I don't think AI is a buzzword. I don't think AI is new. I think it is the evolution of machine learning. I think it's very exciting when used correctly. I worried that it can be used rampantly incorrectly. And as Professor Darren Hayes might agree with, I got fact-checked in an educational class for continuing ed by someone who shouldn't be fact-checking me on ChatGPT. And he went, "Hey, it says you're right." And I went, "You did not just do that in my class." But it did feel good to be right by AI because it's had its quirks, it has its troubles. I'll give a plug to Plaud, Plaud today, as a note taker, as an assistant. It is fantastic. But I can't see more than that. I'm excited to see how San Diego does because you have enough information, rich information, accurate information as an MLS from all the brokers to really do something with AI, as opposed to searching the internet and what's popping up on the highest level.
Andreas, just think about this.
Saul.
Forget the
Yeah.
inventory aspect of MLS, but what makes MLS work are rules. And we've got about a 200-page rule document. We get calls all the time. Can I relist the property? What happens when I change the price? What happens to the days on market? And there are rules that say this is the way. Now, how long does it take for you to train a human being the answers to these questions and to make sure that you're getting consistent answers from them? So it's just a very simple usage by taking a rules manual and feeding it to your AI and then beginning to ask it questions. And then you teach the customer service people how to add. And one of the things we're going to do to begin with is every question the customer service people get over the phone that they answer, we're going to have them enter it into the AI. So we can start to compare what they told people and what they believed the answer was and what the AI says. If the AI is wrong, we'll correct it. And so there's that very basic usage of this where any type of document, like we could take this video, pop it into AI and get a summary. And it would probably
we do.
Huh?
To be fair, we do.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's a great benefit from AI. And then we're not going to say we worry about it, we're afraid. No, we love it because it allows us to condense this video into those moments that are valuable. And then we can go and edit if we want. And then when it gets published with valuable information. It's good. If you had to sit down and listen to it and take notes, we used to do this, right? You watch.
I was going to say, wait, you don't do this after every episode to improve? But go on.
Yeah, well, so any video or a PDF. The other day, somebody asked a question about Paulson versus Marin County, which was in 1976, the Supreme Court decision in California that said you do not have to belong to the Association of Realtors to access the MLS. And that's not the way it is in every state, but that's the way it is in California. And so, and I've been familiar with this for years, but I thought I'm going to put this in AI, ask it for a summary. So I took the PDF and I put it into ChatGPT and got the result. And it was a great summary, right? Took a multi-page document and condensed it for me. So yeah, it's going to take people time to figure out the best ways for them to use it. But I actually use it as a search tool now. I don't like to go to Google. It's got too many ads. I got to go down below the ads to figure out what's there. I just go to ChatGPT, type my question in, and it reviews all the sites for me and comes up with responses. And yeah, you're always going to have to check it. But see, when you go into Google, how do you know that the link you clicked on?
Well, that's a very fair point. So the eroded trust in Google or news or wherever you like instigating questions. Where's this from? How did you get there? Which is the new thing in AI. You can actually investigate and instigate and inform not inform. Darren, you can say it better than I. Perplexity has been known to be smarter and have more brevity in its response. ChatGPT is broader, more language-based, as I understand it. Darren interrupts me when I go off a rail here. This is your realm, not mine. Copilot is new to me, but Microsoft is what we use as a company, so I'm using it. And if I put the same question in all three, I'll get a different answer, which raises other questions, for me at least. I can't believe it's 6:30 already. We went off on an AI tangent just because I had AI and regulation and finance all in the room, which I love. I could talk to you the three of you all day, every day. So finance is growing, AI is growing, cybersecurity is growing. You're checking ChatGPT over Google, although I thought Google was adjusting algorithms to get your answers, as is the rest of the world. It is the most commonplace used item. I think it's got almost as much traffic, if not more traffic at this point than Netflix, which made up 15% globally by a good book you recommended, Saul, and I can't remember the woman's name, which was cited there. But here we are on ChatGPT, all these sources, all these data points. I know that if I went to New York Times, that it was a credible story, regardless of fake news, not fake news, credible stories or opinions. How do I drill down that far in the AI world if I don't know what I'm reading? If I'm not an economist and I ask it about the economy and the future of the economy, it's going to give me a very well-worded answer. There are no safeguards. What does one do there besides call a professional real estate broker or realtor? Come on, Saul or Darren.
No, I think provenance is a big issue,
Providence,
and
thank you.
you ask different different AI models a question. Some might not know what you're talking about. Some will give you an answer. How do you know what the source of the information is, and kind of what are some legal implications? So, if we have this conversation here and there's an AI kind of summary transcript of this, is there anything that this, legally, any legal basis for using this as a case against us, for example? Or, that's kind of an interesting question. And also, AI created items like pictures, for example. This is a big thing in law enforcement. Can that be submitted as evidence against a person that they were creating something with AI that's not a real picture of a child, for example? So there's lots and lots of different legal questions, I think, for AI as well. I think on the positive side, and again, I know next to nothing about real estate, but when I get things in the mail about, we want to buy your home, and homes in your area are going for $1 million, and that's not the true value of your home, there is this spin that brokers do put on some of these marketing materials that maybe you wouldn't get with AI. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, candidly, I will point you to the Mint commercial where Ryan Reynolds goes and he's talking about how cheap it is and how wonderful it is. Repeats himself 4 times and he goes, "We gotta stop having AI write these things." Mind you, it's not so much spin as it is insight and intelligence and dare I say common sense that you can't program yet. AI doesn't understand. Can do A, B, C, D, but cannot do A, Z, D, C, B. Cannot correlate that fast and in those multiple directions. So while all the Coca-Cola ads this year are all AI generated and they look great to all but one of a focus group, I think of like 3,000, those that notice, but that's my problem. What about the ones that don't? And just like I'm now looking at solar rooftops as a means of creating additional revenue for my landlords, that's not something AI can give me as an answer. If you put that into AI, say, hey, what are the revenue streams from a building? They'll say you could put solar on your roof. It will not say you could lease your roof to a company that will put solar on it because the data's not there yet. There's not enough of it. Right or wrong, I don't know. That's a Cpace question. And or a Futurist question back over to Saul. I'll leave it to one of you to jump in and answer.
Hey, so here's the thing for me. The IQ of AI is increasing much faster than most people believe. And I watched a video by Eric Schmidt, not too long ago, like the other day. And he's talking about things that AI models know that nobody knows they know, right? And figuring out how they learned these things that they weren't really trained on, but they figured it out. I thought that was fascinating. I thought it was also fascinating. He said you could take a website and put it into AI, and then it will give you all the code. Now, you click the button and you get all the code behind the website. And so you just give it the picture and it'll tell you all the code behind it. So we're only scratching the surface. And I think that people are going to find their own applications, and some are very simple. My example of using it as a search tool is a very simple use of this. And once you get used to it, you'll find it's a very effective way to search.
I don't disagree. I'm all for the simple task.
Simple task, and then you'll grow into it. You'll find it can do more. But when you mentioned this leasing, you reminded me of rooftops for solar, of leasing a spot on your property for a billboard. That used to be something that we did.
Yeah. How do we squeeze the income? How do we make more so you increase the value, right?
Yeah.
And it's been interesting watching AI grow, especially with CRECo.ai, with data and aggregating data and watching the real estate revolution. Interestingly enough, without naming the platform, in a group of 2,000 commercial brokers, when asked how many of them put their data online into X, whatever X is, not X, formerly Twitter, half raised their hand. No, we will not disclose. We don't want to share it. It's an opaque industry to begin with. I put the IQ score front because now I'm fact checking you in Copilot, so it's in the chat. But AI has a 47.28 on an IQ test. According to Copilot, it might be higher at Perplexity. It's an interesting tool. It's how you use it, right? Garbage in, garbage out. And I can't believe you brought up looking at source code on websites to a guy who's a top 10 cybersecurity specialist on the call with us. Because then that's really the question is now you have a tool with, let's call it almost unlimited resources if it doesn't zap all the electricity out of the grid, because Cpace hasn't rebuilt the grid, looking at websites, making lookalikes, phishing, scamming, day in, day out, phone calls. Darren, if the IQ is 47, something is instigating this AI to come over and attack us. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would just mention about the website. You can click on any website and just look at the HTML code, and that's how phishing attempts are so easy, is because you could just click view source on any website, and you can see that HTML code, and you can, in about 5 minutes or less, you can create your own version of that website and then just register a domain with, instead of chase.com, chaase.com, and people don't look at it so quickly. It's very easy to create these scams with that. You don't need AI, but AI is problematic because I think I heard that you just need 7 seconds of somebody's voice, and you can develop a whole conversation that somebody will have, or create a video of that person, and it's very easy to purport to be a CEO of a company or a chief financial officer and release false projections and then trade on that. That has happened. And it's a big problem. So this idea of threat intelligence is only complicated by how sophisticated AI is getting, because you can create so many false messages with these AI tools.
Well, so those are flags, right? So there's a warning system, a flag of sorts. And I assume AI is there looking at behavior and saying, hey, this is out of sorts. This is new. Maybe this is wrong. Is that a fair statement? Is that a way they are deploying AI? Because those are simple tasks. Having somebody read every email to see if, oh my God, why is so-and-so asking for a password? That seems like a simple task that AI could take. But maybe not.
Yeah, I think a lot of anomalies are, you look at things such as location of where a connection is coming, right? Is this normal for that person? Is the time of that connection normal? This person shouldn't be communicating with this particular server at 1 a.m. from Singapore, right? So those are the kinds of things that you look at. But the bad guys are pretty good because they will take data out very slowly. It's not unusual for somebody to be in a network for months and months, gradually taking out data because they can move from computer to computer, and it becomes very problematic for any kind of incident responder, because it's like whack-a-mole. You think that you've got one compromised computer, but they're on many different computers, especially if you have 40 to 100,000 computers in a network.
Which the MLS is others. These are all interconnected interfaces, right? Cloud connected with data, people inputting data. There are safeguards. Whenever I download something from Google, every once in a while, if it's too large, like the video tonight, it goes, hey, I can't scan this. Do you want to proceed? And I go, I don't know. I better call Darren. And then I calm down. And I go, okay, I think I'm okay. It's from our producer. But the world continues to grow in I don't want to say surface area for attack, because that's something I learned from you, but in ways we can be attacked. And that's also scary. Quick service note to all of our listeners listening in. And if you get something reactionary or an attachment from someone you're not expecting, look long and hard at that, because chances are that might be someone phishing you or someone attacking you. It's running rampant in real estate. We're seeing man-in-the-middle attacks. We're seeing requests for credentials. We're seeing, correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, I may missay this, basic social engineering, where people are bypassing security by pretending to be X and calling Y. Not the movies with the brute force attack with the guy on the computer, but somebody calling the HR department saying, "Hey, I need my credentials." Right? There's so many ways, so you just need to be hyper vigilant there. But
I would add, just as simple as imitating DocuSign and having you open.
I get those once a day. Oh my God!
I mean, it's incredible, and that is very rampant, like you said.
Well, rampant across the board. So, Saul, you're there with the MLS. You're inputting images. I know you have safeguards on uploads, but there's constantly things happening. I mean, what is a real estate person day to day to do, especially one that may not be tech savvy, given the group here, as they look both at upgrading buildings, because as Darren can talk about, we had a thermostat, I think, from China, or some IoT device that came in and hacked the whole network. How does one go forward in 2025? Keeping in mind we already have the flying car, we're about to have flying taxis. Everything in Back to the Future now exists.
So for somebody who sells real estate, I think they need to start to pay attention to some of this stuff. We actually have photo compliance software. And so go back to the MLS has rules. And like, you can't have a picture of your for sale sign in the photo of the property because it's a branding issue and it's against the rules. Well, if you have to go through 25,000, 30,000 pictures looking for the violations, that's a lot of work. But now we have photo compliance software. It goes through and finds them. Now, unfortunately, it's really good. And so
why is that unfortunate?
It'll find a picture of somebody who's right and show it as a violation. And it'll find the violation. You can put it in automatic. It'll find the violation. It'll actually then send out the invoice for fining the people for violating the rules. And so we have the photo compliance. We also have going out and checking the text to make sure. And if we had to check all the text and all the remark sections, that would be really take a lot of manpower. But the software does it for us. It goes out, it finds the key phrases and things that we know are violations, brings them to our attention, and we can do something about it. So there's just huge application of this stuff that you don't even think about. Now with photos, one of the things that we found lately is after the close, sometimes now buyers want to take the photos down. They don't want the images of the internals of the house with where the doors are. And so,
see, Darren, they finally listened to you. You said it 4 years ago.
Now what happens?
People breaking in. Go ahead.
What happens when you have syndicated these images? And so now it goes in the MLS. The MLS, within certain rules, we can take down. Actually, there's a law in California that says after a certain period of time, you can't take them down because they have to do with going in and reestablishing the value of a property. But when you put it in the MLS, typically it gets syndicated, it goes out to 50 or 100 different websites. So the agent calls us and says, my seller wants you to take the images down. Say, well, we can take the images off the MLS, but it's pretty tough for us to go figure out how we're going to get these different people who you approved to receive this data and get them to take the images down. But there's security concerns around that as well with MLS today.
Well, that's once it's online forever. That's the fishbowl of the world we live in.
Wayback Machine.
Right. I love the internet Wayback Machine. Are you kidding me? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I know that insurance companies have used drones to see if people have swimming pools that they're not declaring and that kind of thing. And, now you see more and more of these, thinking about what Saul said, more and more of these kind of reality tours of homes and that kind of thing. I wonder if insurance companies have thought about using some of those to see how risky a property is, or if there's something that maybe they think might not have been declared. And maybe AI can help
Mhm.
determine some of that.
Maybe it can obfuscate things, just like it's personally identifiable, PIA, right? Personally identifiable information, and otherwise, right? It's a scary world. Hell, I'd be scared to put sensors and solar panels on my roof if I knew that all that'd be online and I knew how to break in. Back over to you, Anna Maria. But
Well,
Cpace isn't slowing down. Matter of fact, I think
no.
Cpace should include cybersecurity, and then we'd really have a winning product.
Certainly so. I think with us, it's more vetting vendors and,
Bad actor check.
where are they sourcing their products from? How reliable are the materials, the equipment? It's really hard nowadays. Because there are so many vendors going in and out of business, particularly in the solar industry. And I think the worst of it is over, and that most of the companies out there are here to stay. But we were going through, a pretty difficult period of trying to find the appropriate people who are going to stick around long enough to be able to maintain their systems once they got installed. And so, that's a bit of an issue. But you've brought up several times, Andreas, and not to correct you, but Cpace just can't be used for every solar kind of project, like a solar farm, for example. That is not specific to the improvement of the property. It is not a fixed improvement to a fixed asset. Anytime there's the potential for removing it, or there's it kind of runs the line of becoming utility scale deployment. It's being sold and not being used for the premises on which it was installed. Cpace doesn't pay for that. So you'd have to find other financing tools, incentives, government programs, whatever, to finance something like that.
No, thank you for that, because I certainly didn't mean to imply that you could use Cpace loan to pay for the solar panels on the roof or the farm that somebody else is then reaping benefits from, and you're double booking, right? Collecting lease funds or rental on top. Only that this proliferation or this need of green energy is
it's
staggering.
huge, and it's going to continue to explode. I think we're more in the infants. Well, we're past infancy, more into the toddler stages of where Cpace could be, and that's just following the industry in general, sustainability, and all of the various implementations of different technologies, where they all stand at this point in time. And it's going to continue to grow. It's going to multiply geometrically. It just...
The train has left the station. It's happening.
Oh, yeah.
And the world now cares, and they're up in arms about it. But since you brought up infancy and stages of technology, given the group that's here assembled this December before the holidays, what stage of technology, Saul, is the MLS in? Maturity, I imagine. Maybe even a rebirth, maybe not, I don't know. And then I'm going to bring it over to you, Darren, and bring it back around, because we're already at 6:49, which is part 3 of the show traditionally. But where do you see the MLS in that side of the data industry?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a couple of things here. The first one is that we're starting to discover that there are more uses of the data, that data properly aggregated and sifted and inspected can help, and this has always been the case, can help people make more informed decisions. And so now you can ingest, you can consume a lot more data a lot faster. And I think that's going to do amazing things because it's going to increase transparency in so many different areas. And so the one we've talked about in the past, Andreas, is in the lending world, in the capital markets, being able to surface trends and to surface things about looking at real estate in a context as opposed to one house at a time to determine the value and to be able to automate this and digitizing the loan process. So that's all underway and that's all going on right now. Well, Amazon Web Services, cloud computing and APIs and being able to restrict the downloads and the duplication of the data. That's going to be something I think that the MLS world we're looking at right now, and we're building tools that are going to help us measure the consumption of the data that we disseminate to people who build businesses around it, and then charge them accordingly, charge them specifically, determining different levels, how often you're going to hit our server, that there are different maybe pricing models based on how much access we're going to give you to the changing data that we make available to you to build your model. And then maybe we by charging different amounts for the true usage, we could change and I say flip the model, we can change the MLS model where, believe it or not, realtors, real estate professionals pay to put their information into an MLS. They pay a subscription fee, and then that information is sent out over the web to different locations, and people build billion-dollar businesses around it. What if we could, and think about the rest of the internet, people get paid for their content, but realtors don't get paid for their content. What if we could figure out a way to monetize that? And when you put your listing in, we could actually treat your listing as currency. And so instead of having to pay us a fee as an MLS, we say, if you put in 10 listings, it covers your MLS fee. Or you no longer pay because we figured new ways to monetize, to measure the consumption of the data and charge accordingly. So I think, and I've been around the technology in the real estate space since we started to integrate it in the real estate space in the early 90s. And I see us at a brand new, there's new horizons.
So all the way through maturity, now back to rebirth. Well,
it's all, because people are now seeing that there's new ways to do things, that actually, we can also see there's been a lot of entities that are taking advantage of the current structure. And people
data brokers, other entities, non-brokers, lead cells, so
portals.
Yeah. And a bunch of words Darren, I'm sure, can come up with that I can't at the moment. But rebirth, that's the focus. And if you had to tell the audience tuning in, what should they do or how should they best arm themselves coming into 2025, based on the stage that the MLS is in, based on the stage or the way you see data going? Because I remember the age-old term, pocket listing. Let me just not tell anybody and get on the phone, right? Is that the right way? Wrong way?
Well, we could talk a lot about that. I've always said exposure sells real estate. Exposure brings you the offers. There's a benefit. Exposure creates a marketplace. And so while, people have resurfaced this term over the last couple of years, pocket listing, really that's not exposing your listing to lots of people for your own self-interest. But
which goes back to we could talk all day.
Certainly not in the best interest of the seller not to expose that property to a broader audience. Now, if you're Sylvester Stallone, there's only probably 10 people in the world that can buy your house. So you don't need to get that kind of exposure. But for the typical track home in the United States, exposure is critical.
Okay. All great points, fair points. And the industry's evolving so rapidly. It's been fun taking this ride together as things evolve. It seems in such a shorter period, it's what's happening. The evolution cycles are getting much smaller. And Darren, as commercial and residential real estate data comes online, we've gone from 80 vendors to 20,000 vendors, 2015 to today. Just in commercial alone. Residential, I don't even know how many vendors, right? How many data brokers, how many plugins, how many things. Is cybersecurity in its infancy? Does it need to be reborn? What stage is cybersecurity in? And what should we as business owners be paying attention to?
Well, one thing I would just mention is this. I don't know whether you've read this latest attack called Salt Typhoon, which is a group associated with China's Ministry of Public Security. So basically, the US telecommunications networks have been infiltrated, and it's pretty scary what's happened.
I thought
You
Apple
know,
just
the
wanted me to buy a new iPhone.
no, it's not that. But it's interesting because the FBI have actually warned people that if you're on an iPhone and you're texting somebody who's on an Android, those communications are no longer secure. And you should be using something like Signal or WhatsApp or a different application. So there's very, very big concerns right now in the US government, but this also applies to individuals, to people in the brokerage industry. Think about secure communications and encryption.
1,000%. I am flashing back to when I was hacked and you helped me and you said do X, Y, Z, and I did X and Y and I got hacked again. And I did, long story short, couldn't agree more with the thought process of basic, and not so basic, these procedures that you deploy because smarter people tell you to do them, especially in cybersecurity, especially in that world as you move about. And I'm going to ring back to AI here for a moment. Many of our audience, and I'm taking this from another director I know nationwide, who's talking AI. He's speaking to a group of about 200 brokers and owners. And he goes, how many of you use AI? And half the room put their hands up. Great. How many of you have put a lease analysis into AI to figure out which one you should take? Half the room, third of the room puts it down. The rest are smirking like, you dummies. You should obviously use it this way. And he goes, well, that's great. You just open sourced all that lease data in all those markets for all those other brokers working in those markets, because that's not your data once you put it into ChatGPT. Where you save it, how you encrypt it, how you send it matters. And many companies are coming up against policy. Sorry to go off topic there. I meant to bring it up earlier, but I was stunned by this. How many people will just, it's like the early days of the internet and you publish everything and anything. No, don't do that. Think about what you're doing. And Maria, I dare say Cpace, solar, and so forth is almost a little broader than commercial and residential in a lot of ways. Secondary markets, selling credits, doing all these trades and things. Where are we in Cpace and going green? Infancy, maturity, rebirth. What are we looking out for as we head into 25?
As I said earlier, more toddler into young child, really getting its sea legs, so to speak, and trying to prove how good it is and its worth and how it can grow, and it continues to evolve in different ways, and the nuances from state to state certainly feed into that. And so there is a lot of opportunity. I think when you were using the word rebirth earlier, I would even go so far, which really is the French for rebirth, but renaissance. A rebirthing, but renaissance, when you think of the period of enlightenment, I think is more where like Saul was saying, things are going, the future is brighter. Like I say, the future is green. And so,
but it is.
yes,
Right.
it is, absolutely. And I think as things evolve and things grow, absolutely, you're going to have this enlightenment for the moving forward. So lots of positivity in the air, and I don't think that the recent elections or anything else will be affecting Cpace or sustainability, because it's here to stay. And there are good economics behind it. And that's always going to drive what's going on in business.
Right. These are global cybersecurity, data ownership, private privatization of data, protecting us. These are not issues at a local level. These are global issues. Some countries, Ireland has done a great job already locking this down, and others will follow. Hat tip to my Irish fellow there, Darren. That being said, it's 7:00. I can't believe it. We went into the hour. I want to thank our audience once again. Cannot believe we're about to hit 100 episodes. Cannot believe this turned into this giant show. Thank you to our show producer. Thank you to our audience. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you to the hosts that couldn't make it. My parting words to the audience, and I think I said it last show, I'll say it again. As CEO, Keller Williams said this. He goes, believe the evil you see with your two eyes, and only that evil, and believe in the good. And I love that sentiment as we head into the holidays, because there's so much out there and so much fake news and so much AI and so much God knows whatever. Don't get caught in the spiral if you can't help it. Have a wonderful holiday to our audience. Have a wonderful holiday, my friends, my co-hosts, my colleagues. It is a pleasure doing the show with you. It is a pleasure knowing you. And with that, Mr. Mendoza, and to our audience, if you don't see us at ICSC New York, tune in at first Thursday every month. Do rate, like, and review. It really does help. Thank you, Martin Orchid, for queuing in a few questions out of Illinois. I did see that bounce in. Looking forward to an incredible 2025. Anna Maria, you coined it last show. More in 25? No. Great.
I don't even remember. What did I say?
Let's go with it. Drive for 25, overdrive in 25.
Yes,
I'm going to coin it that way.
Whatever it was. First. It was great then, yes. But happy holidays, everyone.
And a happy new year to you all. Replays available on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your audio, and more sector interviews on the way. Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Could you lead us out?
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Roundtable, powered by CRECo.ai, your source for the latest in real estate and technology. For past episodes, sector interviews, and more great content, follow us on all social media and YouTube at CRE Collaborative. You can also find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please like, subscribe, and share. It really does help. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next Real Estate Roundtable.